I'm shooting over 200 photos with the iPhone 15 Plus and the Galaxy S24 Plus. How do they stack up? In my last photo shootout between the iPhone 15 Pro and Galaxy S24 Plus, Apple's flagship came out on top between the two $1,000 price phones. This time I'm taking the Galaxy S24 Plus and the iPhone 15 Plus for a spin to find out which is better for photography. When it comes to the hardware, you have a 15 megapixel main camera, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and 10 megapixel telephoto with 3x optical zoom with the S24 Plus. That telephoto camera is key because the iPhone 15 Plus doesn't have a dedicated one, so it's only a 48 megapixel main camera paired with a 12 megapixel ultra wide. However, you shouldn't count it out just yet because it leverages pixel binning with the main camera to give it optical quality performance. I'll take you through the results to find out which is the winner. 10 categories, 2 phones, only one winner could come out on top. Starting off with their main cameras, I actually have very little to complain about because they're excellent for just about every scene. What stands out is how the iPhone 15 Plus casts a brighter picture with the carousel in Bryant Park, but it tends to blur out the highlights, while the S24 Plus casts a more even exposure between the highlights and shadows, despite it not being as bright of an image. This one's a tie for me. Both phones have the same 120-degree field of view with their ultra-wide cameras, so they both do a good job of capturing the entirety of these buildings. When I zoom into the shots, I do notice the S24 Plus pulling in a bit more detail with the brickwork around the building. But the iPhone 15 Plus again casts a brighter image that gets my attention, so it's another toss-up here. Side by side, I like how the iPhone 15 Plus handles dynamic range better, mainly because it boosts the exposure in the shadows, resulting in a brighter shot. The Galaxy S24 Plus still offers excellent dynamic range performance, but the shadows don't nearly get the same exposure boost as the iPhone. Right away, I can tell there's a noticeable difference with how they produce colors, with the iPhone 15 Plus ramping up the saturation levels far more in these shots. The green leaves in particular have this shiny look. Don't get me wrong, it helps to get my attention, but it's simply too saturated. Meanwhile, the S24 Plus is still on the saturated side, but it's not too overboard with it. Technically, neither phone has a dedicated macro mode, but they can still take close-ups. The detail captured is unbelievable with both phones, which I could see with all the details on the leaves of this flower, but between them, there's better sharpness and clarity when I zoom into the iPhone 15 Plus's photo. It does overexpose the shadows more than the S24 Plus, but its ability to pull in more detail makes the biggest difference for me. It's another close one with these selfies. Both phones have 12 megapixel front-facing cameras and do a superb job at capturing the beauty marks and wrinkles around my face. But the warmer hue and sharper details of the iPhone 15 Plus gets my vote. I stuck with one-time zoom for these portrait photos, but it's clear that the Galaxy S24 Plus's main camera has a wider field of view. While that might matter for some folks, I'm not too critical about this because I'm interested more in how these photos isolate me from the background. For the most part, they do a pretty good job at this, including how my stretched out arm is out of focus more the closer it is to the camera. But I prefer the way the iPhone 15 Plus handles my skin tone, which isn't as oversaturated as the Galaxy S24 Plus, and it captures more detail, like the fabric material of my shirt and all the marks on my face. On paper, there's a clear advantage with the Galaxy S24 Plus because it features a dedicated telephoto lens with 3x optical zoom. The iPhone doesn't have one, so it's leaning on the main camera for all of its zooming, which is digital beyond 1x zoom. I'm comparing photos at 10x zoom because that's the maximum that the iPhone 15 Plus can achieve. Knowing that, I'm surprised by how well the iPhone performs here because it's clearly doing something in the background to enhance its shot. The overall photo looks awfully close to the Galaxy S24 Plus, but that's until I zoom in more. The S24 Plus has more definition around the statue, especially around the legs and shoes, but it's not by a huge stretch. The iPhone impresses me, but Samsung gets the nod here. When it comes to shooting panoramic photos, I could use either their main cameras or ultra-wide. I stuck with their main cameras for all of my comparison shots, which I have to say captures the same amount of detail, like the stonework in the far background of the New York Public Library. However, I'm instantly attracted to the vibrant green lawn of Bryant Park with the S24 Plus, but the exposure is all over the place. For example, the clouds are overblown, while a small section of the lawn is a little underexposed towards the middle right. The iPhone 15 Plus keeps the exposure consistent and paints a more realistic picture with its natural colors. And finally, we're back to my backyard where I always capture low-light photos of my detached garage. I want to mention again that I took these photos in pitch black conditions, but these photos make it look like there's some ambient light sources nearby, but there aren't. This one's a tough call because they both light up the scene nicely, but the exposure is a smidge better with the iPhone 15 Plus. Also, there's a fair amount of detail in the trees, branches, and lawn, but the trigger name on my smoker isn't as smudgy looking with the iPhone 15 Plus. Well, this shootout came out a lot closer than I thought, but the iPhone 15 Plus wins out because it consistently produces the brighter and more pleasing photos in nearly every photo I captured. And despite it lacking a telephoto camera, it still offers reasonable zooming quality when I need it. As for the S24 Plus, it's still a fantastic camera phone and technically has the better zoom performance, but you're paying a bit more for it at $1,000 versus $900 for the iPhone 15 Plus. So what do you guys think? Did the iPhone 15 Plus get more of your votes? Don't forget to check out all the photos I captured on our website. I'm John V, and I'll see you in my next video.